everyone, and welcome to Read This Now, the weekly webcast where Brad Gustafson and I share two books that we love and we think you should read. When, Brad?
Right now, people, read them right now. And we got some good ones. I'm assuming you have a good one. I have a good one.
I can't wait
Jen
to
and
hear
I don't
about
really,
it.
we don't leak the book titles ahead of time. So,
Although sometimes, Brad, in full disclosure,
Mhm.
as I'm stalking your social media feed, I do think, ooh, I wonder if he's going to talk about that
Sure,
book,
sure,
because
sure.
I know
Yeah,
we both share our reading lives online. So I think sometimes
yeah.
there's hints there, but sometimes not. So I'm
Correct,
always
correct.
anxious to hear what you're going to share.
Right on, right on. So, is it okay if I dive right in?
Go for it.
Pun intended, by the way. You'll see in a sec. Wait for it. Wait for it. So, I got a picture book today that was really refreshing, and the reason I wanted to share with it the message. There are some life parallels and things that people I think just will really encourage kids and yourself even as a professional. So this is the book I'm going to share is proof that picture books are for all ages. But the end, I thought it had a kind of an unexpected cadence or something just that choked me up a little bit. I've probably been a little bit more emotional these days with the pandemic and stuff, but it was really powerful, and I want to share with you. So the book is, wait for it, Cannonball In
Okay.
by Tara Martin. Okay.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And it's a story of a little girl who is scared to go off the diving board, probably something many of us can relate to. At one point, she climbs up at the city park and just can't go in despite her dad's encouragement. So she kind of backs down, takes the walk of shame, and the people on the sidewalk or whatever it's called around the pool deck, kind of lay into her with little comments and hurting things. So eventually, with her dad's teaching and encouragement, you can probably guess what happens. She makes a splash, and there's some connections to the world and making a difference. But there's more. There's a teeny bit more than that I thought was extra powerful and totally worth the read. I think I'm going to carry it with me. And for picture books, unless I'm reading to kiddos at school, I don't usually reread them too many times. But just for myself, this is actually one that I plan to reread periodically. So the book that I think you should read right now is Cannonball In by Tara Martin, illustrated by Genesis Kohler. One last thing in here, I do want to show you her dad.
Mm-hmm.
The author Tara, in and about the author part, mentions that the story is based off her dad who took care of her, and she shared not her biological dad, but and he was Cherokee, and I connected with her authenticity and sharing kind of her family and their identity. So it wasn't just a powerful message and relationship that was really clear, but that was a neat aspect that Tara shared as well. So for all of those reasons and more, Jen, you got to read it right now. It's a good one.
Oh, I love it. I love it. I've been thinking lately about how, I don't know if it's social media or maybe it's just my own awareness, but I feel like I'm more aware than ever about how an author's life informs their story. And I don't mean that as like a general thing, but how specific authors, like I feel like I'm more aware than ever of how a specific author's life or experience has informed that story, because those stories feel shared in a way now that I don't know either what weren't being shared 10, 15 years ago, or that I wasn't aware of, one of the two. But I think it adds so much when there's an author's note, or there's a part of the story, or they've shared something on social media, or there's a YouTube video where you can listen to or just be aware of, how an author comes to be at a place where the creation of this book is possible. And I love that. So that's wonderful. I think that's why Own Voices books are so important too, where the lived experience informs the book. But
yeah, thanks for sharing
sounds
that.
great.
And Tara did give some insights at the back of the story. I think she mentioned that this is based on a true memory or something that actually happened with her dad, which is probably why it felt so visceral.
Yeah. Well, per usual, Brad, we're like right on the same path, because I've got a picture book to share this week as well. Again, Brad and
Double picture book week. I love it.
I know we never ever planned this. And in fact, I had another book ready to share. But then I read this picture book and I knew I had to share it. And just like you were saying, while I have many picture books that live in my heart that are special that I recommend, I don't go back and reread them all the time unless there's a specific reason to, like I'm sharing them with a group or whatever. Uh, this one in particular, I've probably read a dozen times since I first read it, because it has just, I don't know, it's like been the book my heart needed right now. And it made me feel like maybe there were other people for whom that would be true as well. This is the kind of book that has kind of a small mystery in it. And so I don't want to give that piece away, but I do want to read the first few pages and share that with you before I say anything else about the book. The book is called Nothing in Common, and it's by Kate Hoefler and Corinna Luyken. And I just want to show you the cover. You've got these two kids on the cover who are looking at the sky, not facing each other. And if you take off the dust jacket, as our good friend Mr. Shu tells us to do, then you can see these two kids, their position has changed. They're still looking at the sky, but they're facing each other. And now there's something up in the sky. I don't know if you can see what that is, Brad, but it's a balloon. And if I were reading this with kiddos, I might point that out, but then I wouldn't say anything else. What I will say to you is that that's sort of a hint to the mystery. But, and then the beautiful liner papers, there's stars in the sky, etc. But I want to read these first few pages to you before I talk about the book. Partly because, I don't know, there's just something about sharing the beautiful words and pictures of a picture book with other people that feels so fulfilling to me. But the opening spread of this book reads, "They had nothing in common, so they never waved." I don't know if you can see, let me hold that out. You've got these two kids from the cover, separate windows, maybe looks like they live in an apartment building or in houses right next to each other, but they don't wave to one another because they have nothing in common, except every day they loved watching the old man with his dog. The dog could do marvelous things and did things they felt under the floors of their hearts. But other than that, they had nothing in common. And you can see in here in this spread them looking out the window, watching the dog. I don't know if you can see what the dog is doing back there. I won't. If I were reading this with kiddos, I would hint at that, but maybe not point it out real explicitly. Still, they were the only ones who noticed when one day things were different. And can you see, Brad, what the old man is posting there?
Yes.
Pictures of his lost dog. And you can kind of predict what's going to happen next. But this spread, listen to these words, Brad. Neither had ever seen an old man cry or heard a name called so sadly it flies through your window and lands on your chest. It happened just to them. And you can see them in their separate windows. And the old man out there, there he is searching for his friend. I'll read one more page and then I'll stop. I'll read two more pages and then I'll stop. When morning came, they both went out with binoculars and a helmet for thinking, because a marvelous dog could be anywhere, doing anything, and a marvelous friend is hard to find. They both knew that. They looked on the same quiet rooftops and under the same whale and near the same planets, and they thought of the same old man crying. But other than that, they had nothing in common. And I'll stop there. I'll just show you with their helmets on for thinking that they both had, even though they had nothing in common, and then they're out looking, etc. And this book has sort of a magical element to it. There's something fantastic about how they end up searching for the dog. But in 2020, this feels like such an important book, because at its heart, this is about two people who think they have nothing in common until they take time to notice things in the world and find where their two hearts overlap, like in a Venn diagram, right? And I think about that in this particular time, even though there's nothing in this book that even hints at 2020 or politics or anything like that. It's a magical story about a lost dog. It just felt like a message that we all could use right now about trying to
Mm.
notice the things we have in common, even when it feels like we have nothing in common.
You've
So,
done it again, Jen. You've done it again. I
nothing in
saw
common.
on somebody on social media shared that book cover, like maybe I feel like it was maybe Colby Sharp read it to his class or something. And I
Uh-huh.
noticed the cover and I started guessing and making connections and it piqued my interest. So then a second ago, when you said that was what you're going to book talk, I'm like, yes, I wanted a glimpse into it. And oh my gosh, it exceeded all expectations. I love when books and picture books and novels have really short, poignant sentences that
Hmm.
grip you and are unexpected and make you think. And you read a few in there that were just
Oh, I know.
masterpieces.
I felt like as I was reading it, I'm like, I could read this with a group of kinders or first graders and have a whole conversation about what it feels like to have a lost dog and, your pet and looking at things from the inside out. Like you could have whole conversations on the blocking of colors and stuff with little kids. And I could have a whole conversation with 11th graders about elements of this book and the way the sparse language is used to be super evocative. I mean, you mentioned early and you nailed it, picture books are for all ages. And I think both of them today, even though again, not planned, both of them today really speak to that universality about how picture books can be for any reader of any age.
We make a good team.
How about
Question.
it?
So this is a random thought, and this is, as you know, how my brain works. But your book was so powerful. You know how we do read alouds, and you'll read, whatever, a chapter every day or however it works. I don't know. Has anyone ever done that with a picture book and just, a page, and then the next day you do the next page? Because that book, as you were reading that, I would love to just stew and reflect and imagine after hearing that page and go home at night. I'm just picturing myself as a kid and not be able to wait to
Hmm.
get back to school to hear what's next as the story evolves. That's how powerful and
Yeah.
how each page and sentiment seem like they could stand on their own. So
It's interesting because I thought about that a little bit in terms of the illustrations because the illustrator for this book's name is Corinna Luyken. Her book My Heart was one of my very favorite picture books last year. Full disclosure, she lives in my hometown, but we've never met, so she's not really twisting my arm to say any of this. But while she uses a variety of colors in her books, most of her books tend to focus on two or one color, and you can see blue and red and like sort of variations of that are the thematic colors for this book. My Heart yellow was the color for that book. And I wondered about like an art teacher reading a couple of pages of this and then talking to kids about, like, you could spread it out every single day and really have the content or the standards be about something other than literacy and yet use this book as the platform for that. I think, picture books offer all of those kinds of opportunities to be serialized, as you mentioned, to be read in one shot, to be repeated over and over again. I'm going to say this one thing and then, we can move on. But I used to do family book clubs as a librarian, in which we would have readers of all ages, including their parents or grandparents or whatever, come together to experience a family book club. And what we found early on is that there's very few books that every member of the family is going to be able to get a meaningful experience from, and so in a way that can be a real club experience. You can do a picture book, but that's really, one meeting for some of those readers. So what we would do is we would select several books based on a theme. So maybe all the books have a thematic element, but there's a picture book for really young readers. There's a chapter book, an early chapter book for elementary school readers. There's a middle grade novel and a young adult novel, and kids and families can select which ones are right for each reader in their family. But the picture book element for your youngest readers, that can be reread every single time you meet to talk about a different element, to do different activities, etc. Picture books really lend themselves to repeat readings to help readers notice all of the art, both in the writing and in the illustrations that go into creating them.
And speaking of noticing, your glasses and outfit actually match the color theme of your book. I feel
Oh,
like
totally planned. No,
I'm underachieving here, Jen. You're crushing it again.
that's
Way to go.
completely unintentional, but happy to have it done. So, with that, this show to me has been already one of my favorites amongst a list of many other favorites, because I love it when we sort of go down the rabbit hole of literacy and how we can use books to connect not just with students but also with our colleagues, etc. I love that. Again, unscripted, unplanned, but I love when it happens. So
Yeah.
if our 3.5 viewers want to check out this video again, or the nearly 3 years worth of book recommendations that we've shared since we started
I
Read This
think
Now,
we're up
where
to
can they go?
we're up to 3 3/4 viewers. My kids are growing up and they're counting as more of a person. So no.
Awesome. I love
To
it.
go
I
to
love it.
go to a list of lots of different books and genres and things that Jen and I have talked about, go to bit.ly/read_this_now.
Woohoo! Thank you, my friend. As always, great connecting.
That was great. Thanks, Jen.
Happy reading.